Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about reality. Reality itself, the nature of reality. What is reality? Why is it here? Why are we here in it? What's the point? What's the purpose? First and foremost, we have to understand something. What is a paradox? A paradox is where you have two truths, two realities that appear at first glance to be contradictions of one another, but do nonetheless coexist. So, for example, you have the fact that each and every individual human being is at their core an individual, unique expression of consciousness, of the same consciousness, because there is no difference in any aspect of consciousness, okay? Consciousness is awareness, pure and simple. But this is where the paradoxical nature of it comes into play. Each and every person is, at their core, consciousness. But each and every person is an individual that has their own mind and body, that consciousness itself is being, you could say, channeled through. Their mind, their body is a portal for which consciousness experiences. And this state of both oneness and separation is the primordial example of what a paradox is. And this is too much for people, right? They're so locked into very small picture loop think that a concept or a reality like that is just too overwhelming, too seemingly complicated for somebody to understand. But the fact is that it's very simple. Once you just simply realize that there is no difference between one person's consciousness and another person's consciousness, because consciousness is just awareness. Awareness does not differ, it just is what it is. It's like black and white, okay? You have these two quote-unquote colors that aren't colors at all. Black is the absence of color, and white is every color combined. And you only have one shade of each of these quote-unquote colors. It's the same thing with awareness. You only have awareness. There's no different variation of awareness. You just have different expressions of awareness. So you and I have the same awareness, but we're experiencing two different experiences of reality because we each have our own conduit for which consciousness is channeled through which consciousness experiences. So we have two totally separate existences. But this is, again, a paradox, right? We have two totally separate existences, but we share the same reality. We both live in the same reality, but we each have our own subjective experience and perception of that one reality that we both share. So this is the essence of the paradox, right? Without it being explored and understood, it will appear that when you make a statement like we are all one but all separate, that's impossible. Just from a purely logical point of view where there's no investigation, where it's just right off the cuff, first time heard it. But, of course, the truth is far from this idea that it is impossible. And the paradox as a concept in and of itself, it's just a word to describe this phenomenon it doesn't actually exist. There is no such thing as a paradox, right? A paradox, the word paradox is just it's a concept to articulate this sensation that we get when faced with two seemingly contradictory ideas or realities. But in all actuality, these seemingly contradictory ideas are not contradictory at all, and they exist side by side naturally. It's just the way that our minds work and how they've been programmed. We just automatically think that if one is true, the other can't be. And this is the essence of what the word paradox is trying to describe. But of course, this is not the case. The reality that we are all one and yet separate is just a natural truth of reality that really requires no mental gymnastics whatsoever to understand. It's just that in the position our minds are in, we do have to go through this process of thought and realization and understanding in order to get to the point where we can see clearly that there is no paradox at all, that this is just how it is. And it makes perfect sense. What people think of as God, okay, what people call the word God, what they're really talking about, whether they know it or not on any level, is consciousness. Okay? Consciousness is the creator and the essence of reality itself. Consciousness thought reality into existence. That is why in the Bible it says there was the word, the logos. Where does a word come from? Thought first. Everything starts in the mind. This is the law of mentalism, as they say in Hermetics. This is the essence of what's being described in the Bible, is that consciousness had a thought, and the thought was, I am. And through I am, there is now other thoughts to be had, other experiences to be had. So through the I am thought, you now have infinite possibility. And so consciousness thought reality into existence. The layers and levels of the physical reality that can be incarnated into through vessels, whether they be flesh and blood vessels like ours in this level of density, or perhaps some sort of what you would think of as maybe an angelic light form, at a very high level of density where there's not what we would perceive as this dense flesh and blood physical matter, rather more pure, intangible light, plasma, whatever. There's all sorts of different, infinite different ways in which consciousness can experience this reality that it created for itself. And through this process, there had to be also, in accordance with that infinite possibility of different experiences, there had to be an infinite number of conduits to experience these infinite experiences. And that is where the reality of separation comes into play. Through the physical existence on any level, there comes the separation through the different physical conduits that we call our bodies. And, through each individual conduit for experience and expression, comes the cultivation of what we call the soul. Spirit, the word spirit and consciousness are the same to me. Spirit, consciousness, semantics. It is when consciousness fractalizes itself through the physical incarnation into a physical existence, through a physical conduit, vessel, body. That is where the soul comes into play. That individual expression of consciousness is the soul. The soul is the individual expression of consciousness. And again, with the paradoxical idea here that the soul is still that one consciousness that we all are, but now through the physical experience, through the separation via the physical experience, they are now also a separate expression of that consciousness. They are their own expression of that consciousness. This is difficult for people to wrap their minds around. I mean, really wrap their minds around to where they fully understand it and they're not confused by this seemingly paradoxical truth. It must be rectified, reconciled in people's perception in order for them to arrive at a point of true understanding and to realize that there really is no paradox at all. And so through these experiences, the individual expression, the soul, is shaped. The individual person is shaped into more and more of the unique individual expression that they are through their experiences, because no two expressions of consciousness will ever share the same exact experience in any situation. Even if they're on the same world, experiencing the same world, they will have two completely different experiences in that same world. They'll have two completely different perceptions of that world. They'll be in two different situations on that world. So yes, while they share the same world, they are having two completely different experiences of it, and they have different perceptions of it. And this, again, is, you'll always find, you always come back to this idea of paradox, where, yes, two different expressions, two different souls exist on the same world, but they will not see the exact same world. It's just, it does not work that way. And that's how it's designed. You see, reality was created with the fundamental intention of ensuring that there is an infinite variety of experiences in both space, time, and perception, and everything in between. So that no matter where, when, and who you are, there was always going to be an infinite variety of experiences. That is the fundamental purpose for why reality was created. So that there could be infinite ways for consciousness to experience existence, to experience itself, to evolve. Infinite differences in evolution. Infinite pathways of evolution. And this all comes through individual perception in individual circumstances, irregardless of the sameness of certain circumstances, right? You will have two or several different people just on Earth, for example, that go through very similar experiences in their life, but none of them will be exactly the same. Of course, they will be more relatable to each other, more so than other people who didn't have similar experiences. But nonetheless, they will be different. Completely different. No matter how closely related or similar that they are, they will always be different. And that is really, like at its core, the answer to the fundamental question that so many people have asked throughout time. Why are we here? Who am I? And of course, I can talk forever about it and go into it more and more. But simply and fundamentally, it answers both of those questions. You are consciousness. You are infinite consciousness, meaning that the only limitation in terms of what you can think, where you go within your own self, you make your own limitations, and it's all within you. So you are infinite consciousness, but more specifically, you are an individual, unique expression of that infinite consciousness, which means you have your own free will. You have a mind of your own, a will of your own. But you are that consciousness. That's what you are. You are a soul, which by definition is an individual separate from other individuals, unique expression of consciousness. That is what you are. And why are you here? You're here fundamentally to experience your individual unique experience, to express your individual unique self, to learn your own unique individual lessons, to have your own unique individual perception. And of course, by proxy, you are here to integrate those unique experiences, perceptions, lessons with others who have also and are also going through that exact same process in their own way, on their own unique individual journey within their experience. But here's the thing, right? Even though we're all experiencing our own unique experience individually, we're all sharing the same reality. We are all alike in terms of that we are all consciousness. So it is as much a collective journey as it is an individual one. They go hand in hand. And it is much a journey of the soul as it is of consciousness in general. It is consciousness's journey through the individual souls. It is through the individual souls that consciousness has the opportunity to experience infinitely. This is why we're here. Fundamentally, we're not here for any sort of fractalized purpose. Like, for example, we're not here to, create paradise. We're not here to love. We're not here to do this or that or the next thing. We're not here for any individual variation of experience, is what I'm saying. We're here as a whole for all of the experiences, for the infinite variety of experiences that are possible. That is why we are here. And this means that there are many of us here to experience solely the phenomenon of hatred or fear or anything you would perceive as negative. All of it is in the service of not the high will. This is where verbiage and terminology gets muddled, because high is not the right word. It is the primordial, fundamental, foundational purpose. The fundamental will, the root cause, the root reason why we're all here is to experience everything that is possible. And that is why every experience, no matter how negative, positive, or anywhere in between that it seems or is perceived, is all a result of the foundational, fundamental purpose of existence, and that is infinite experience. Now, this is why I need to be heard in full. And this again ties in completely with the paradox concept phenomenon. So while this is the case, right, that all experiences, no matter what they are in the service of the foundational purpose for existence, this does not mean that there is not an objective morality, a right or a wrong towards experiences and behaviors. This is part of the evolution of consciousness as a whole, and through the individual soul's realization and enlightenment. It is through the individual soul's enlightenment that consciousness in its entirety becomes more and more enlightened. It is through the non-enlightenment. It is through the lowest of the low, so to speak, quote unquote, base consciousness, the where there's no knowledge, no perspective, there is just the enslavement to the instincts or to trauma or whatever it is. It's all in service of the evolution of consciousness. But what I'm talking about now is the enlightenment in terms of knowledge, of truly knowing things, consciously knowing things. This is where you get the sort of evolution that I'm not going to say that it's more beneficial than that opposite side of the spectrum of just complete ignorance and not knowing, because everything has its value. There are things that are learned from that state of not knowing, from that state of ignorance and darkness, or however you want to put it, that you will never learn in that state of acquiring knowledge in the sense that we're talking about, that conscious enlightening knowledge. They both serve their purpose. But ultimately where everybody is going, all individual expressions of consciousness, all souls, they're all going in the same direction, so to speak. The direction of inward, towards understanding who and what we are, and through that understanding we will understand what is outside of ourselves also. This is where we're all fundamentally headed. It's just in order to get there, in order to get on that path, so many have to walk the path where they are just completely disconnected from themselves, where they are completely devoid of knowledge of self and of reality. And that experience is necessary. But again, I want to make sure this is understood. None of this changes the fact that there is an objective difference between what is right and wrong, both in a sense of knowledge, in terms of what's true and what's not, and also in morality. What's the right and the wrong thing to do? There are objective truths here. And this is what I'm talking about when I speak about, at least the foundation of enlightening knowledge. I mean, just think about it this way. What would you want someone else to do to you? How would you want them to treat you? And this is where, the journey into the self becomes so important. You really have to understand, what is it that you will tolerate from another person until you say, that's enough, this is wrong. And this answer, of course, will be different for everybody in terms, because everybody has different thresholds that they have in terms of what they'll tolerate. But ultimately, what it comes down to, if we could just simplify it and really, break it down to what everybody could agree on fundamentally, it comes down to your freedom. Your freedom to choose. And when we talk about rights, we're talking about the right to make your own choices. No one can take that away from you. This again is part of the paradoxical concept. When a group of people are enslaved, you are enslaving yourself. No one can enslave you. No one can enslave another person. It doesn't work that way. There is only you're allowing yourself to be enslaved by someone else. And this is what it comes down to. There is only one right in existence, and that is choice. You as an individual have the right to make your own choice. And this means that anybody has the right to make the choice to attempt to infringe upon your choices. And you have the right to choose to not let them. When you have property that is your property and someone tries to steal it, they have every right to try to steal it. There's no magical, mystical force that is going to stop them from attempting to steal what you have. So therefore, they have every right to attempt to steal it. It is up to you and your level of understanding and courage whether or not they will be able to succeed in their attempt. So, if somebody wants to kill you, they have every right to try. In the reality of reality, they have every right to try. And you have every right to respond accordingly. When we talk about rights, we're talking about from a certain level of moral comprehension, where we understand what people have a moral right to, and right to do, actions to take, and what they don't, right? So you have every right to do whatever you want to your own body because it's yours, or to your own property because it's yours. This is from a moral standpoint. This is not in reference to reality itself. This is what needs to be understood. This is part of the evolution of consciousness, where individuals have the capability to understand the moral truths that exist within the realm of conscious understanding. But what you have to really understand is that these truths do not exist in the, how do I put it? They don't exist in the playing out of reality itself. In reality, look at the animal kingdom. It's survival of the fittest. There's no moral law in the playing out of reality. There is only predator and prey. It is because human beings and any being that has the sort of ability of self-awareness and reflection that a human being does, it is because of these beings, that moral truths and laws can be discovered at all in the first place within the realm of conscious understanding. That's a product of evolution, not just physical, spiritual, quote unquote, right? Knowledge in the intangible. It's both a product of the physical development of our physiology and brains, and we can talk about all that later. But also through but if it weren't for that, because if it weren't for the tool set, the tools of that advanced brain, there would be no capability of that intangible spiritual evolution either. So there's no latter without the former. This is what this is a part of. So all I'm saying is, in a nutshell, is that in reality, anybody has any right to do whatever the fuck they want to do. It is only when human-level conscious beings understand how morality really works, what it's really all about, what the consequences are of an immoral society. This is the only place, this is the only realm where these truths exist, is in the conscious awareness of human-level intelligent beings. And it is only through that intelligence that moral understanding and law comes into play in reality. Without that, there is nothing. So if a person has no concept or doesn't care about what's right or wrong, they have every right in reality to try to do whatever they want to do. It is up to the person who they are attempting to take these actions upon to stop them. The idea of enlightenment is to get people as a whole, as a collective, enough individual souls to be enlightened and aware and understand moral law and reality, so that there can be a fundamental foundation of understanding and peace amongst individuals, so that what can be focused on is achievement, accomplishing things, greatness, evolving into space, technology, etc., etc., etc. It's so that the focus can shift from having to worry about what other people are doing to each other and how to manage disarray and chaos, to there being a foundation of order, so that the attention of people, of individuals in the collective, can be pointed at, directed at endeavors that involve the exponential growth of the species in every direction that we can think of and look in. That's the idea. The idea is so that people can achieve a level of understanding where we can evolve now in all of the other ways that, you would think of. Like I said, technologically, traveling space, spiritually, achieving, feats of spirituality that you'll read about or hear about in certain cultures, like in Eastern cultures, where, you have people levitating and things of that nature, telepathy, things of this nature. This is where the possibilities lead to once we have established a collective consciousness based in moral understanding. But again, that does not exist outside of that understanding, and that is what the process of enlightenment is all about. And right now we live in a world where most people are unenlightened to a severe degree. Even if most normal, average, everyday people are not actively doing harm to other people, taking immoral action against other people, even if they think they understand what morality really is and what the truth really is, they are obviously mistaken. Otherwise, you wouldn't see the immoral world that is built up all around us. And you have the people at the very top of the hierarchy of power in society who do not care what the difference between right and wrong is. They probably know it, but they are in a position, they are in a state of consciousness where it is irrelevant to them. Or it depends. Or they think that what they're doing is the right thing. So, and then, in all actuality, they don't really know. So, they may not know, they may know and not care, they may not know and think they're doing the right thing. It doesn't matter. So you have those people who are facilitating and benefiting off of the whole situation. And then you have the masses who don't really understand and who, like them, probably think that they do. So, what does this have to do with the nature of reality? Well, we're talking about the fact that all experiences are necessary and have their own unique, unreplicatable purpose. But that there is a path that everybody is ultimately walking, even if they are completely oblivious to that fact, even if they're blindfolded walking it, even if they think they're walking a totally different path, they're all walking the path simultaneously of both experience and enlightenment, conscious knowledge. They may be light years in the wrong direction of where they need to be in order to arrive at a position where they can say that they are consciously enlightened enough in order to be able to understand something like moral reality. But they are walking it at their own pace, doing what they need to do in order to, experience what they need to experience to evolve consciousness from their role. This does not mean, this is what I'm saying, this does not mean that just because that they are in that position doing the things that they're doing, that the things that they're doing are okay. This does not mean that. I use this example a lot. People think that people who are aware of these sorts of ideas, that, that everybody's consciousness and that there is a foundational purpose to all experience, people who are aware of this to a certain extent, they will take the mentality that, this means that the behavior that leads to these experiences, some of them are okay because of that fact that everything is serving that purpose. This is nonsense, and this is what I'm talking about with paradoxes. The concept of paradoxes. Both things can be and are true. Just because the worst of the worst experiences and the worst of the worst behavior are necessary and valuable to that foundational purpose does not make them morally okay. Do you understand? A child starving in a third world country and the people's actions who facilitate that experience's presence, neither of those things are okay. from a moral perspective. Would you want to be starving? Would you want to be suffering and starving to death? Do you think it's okay to facilitate that experience? If that was you, would you be okay with somebody facilitating your starvation? No, I didn't think so. This is what I'm talking about with the journey inward to really understand the difference between right and wrong. What would you want done to you? So just because these experiences are automatically by their existence serving the need, the will of consciousness to experience infinitely does not make them okay, and this is part of the evolution. Those experiences are there just as much for that primordial reason in a vacuum as they are to enlighten other people to the fact that they are not okay. Simultaneously. It's the same thing. It's serving that purpose, yes, but simultaneously it's not okay. And people cannot get their head around this or don't want to. Why? Because it's easy. It's easy for people to just believe and write off immoral behavior and the consequences of it as just, it's all part of the plan. It's all needed for consciousness evolution, and that's the end of it for me. I don't have any responsibility to change it, to do anything about it. I don't have a moral obligation to try to stop it, to try to rectify it. This is the stance. This is the mentality that people take. But I'll tell you what. If you could put them in that little child's position and have them be fully aware of the position that they were in and who they were before they were just put in that position, they would be disgusted with their former self who looked at that situation with apathy because of that mentality that they took. They'd be disgusted. But this is the problem. People say they're empathetic and that, they're empaths, but the truth is that most people need to be put in these positions to really understand. Not everybody, but most people. I'm not one of them. If you couldn't tell, I can go in my own mind and put myself in that position and imagine what it's like. I can never know because I'm not in that position, but I can fucking imagine. And my imagination is enough for me to understand that if I was that person, I would want me, right? If I was that kid and I knew about, and I as him knew about me, I'd want me to change that situation because he's powerless to change it, right? He's powerless. I'm not. I could change it. I'm in a position where I'm not starving, where I have the ability to speak about it, to inform people about it, to take action about it somehow. That's what I would want me to do. And that is empathy. True empathy. That is true moral understanding. I'm very well aware that that child's experience is ultimately serving the purpose of existence. I'm very well aware of this. I'm aware of that for every experience. But I'm also aware that that experience can be serving that purpose and still be wrong. Still be something that I should feel obligated to rectify. It's not that difficult, people. It's really not. But this just goes to show you exactly how fucked the human race is. How backwards everybody really is. How inverted, how disconnected, how stupid the human race has been engineered and self-perpetuates itself into being. And it just makes me sick. It makes me sick to my fucking stomach. So I just want everybody to understand that there's a dual-natured purpose to reality. There is the fundamental experience, the fundamental reality that is infinite experience. From you know, the quote unquote best of the best to the quote unquote worst of the worst. You know, everybody's got their own definition of what's the best and what's the worst, but you know what I mean. You know, from the most joyful, pleasant experiences to the most painful experiences full of suffering, everything is serving that purpose, yes. But again, not paradoxically, but paradoxically to some, the other purpose is that journey into the self, into understanding, into enlightenment. All experiences are pushing us to that point where that certain level of enlightenment and beyond is achieved. It's always pushing us there. And listen, we each have the free will to stay where we are or move toward it. I mean, like, we're all ultimately walking the path, whether we, think so or think we're choosing to or not. But listen, you can remain in that state of just, deep ignorance and committing immoral actions, behaving immorally, for as long as you want. You can be in a state of ignorance and just complete not knowing as long as you desire. But ultimately, everything is going to be pushing you in that direction. And you can fight that current as long as you want. That's the point of free will. That's why it's there. You don't have to do anything. And that's the whole idea. That's the only right there is in existence, is choice. And you have every right to choose moral wrong or moral right. You have every right to choose knowledge or ignorance. You have every right to not be right in reality. But see, this is the thing. Once you understand moral reality, you realize that when you are now in this state of perception, that you don't have the right to be wrong. Because from a moral standpoint, being wrong facilitates and perpetuates wrongness being done. It is when there is wrongness in perception that wrongness is manifested in behavior, in reality. So you realize you have a moral obligation to not be wrong and to try to enlighten others so that they're not wrong. Because it will result in just more wrongness. But see, that's the thing, right? You can never force anybody to do anything. No matter how right you may be and how much you want to enlighten them, you can't force them to be right. It's something that they have to arrive at in their own awareness on their own. They have to get there by themselves. You can help all you want. But if they don't do it themselves, you can't do it for them. You can only be a catalyst. You can only be a guide. You can only be an influence. You have to be a force that helps them do it themselves. That's the only way. This is what I'm saying, Morality versus free will, right? Yes, morality exists, and the truth of what the difference is between morally right and wrong is a reality, but so is free will. And this is the thing, though, when you make a choice to try to infringe on someone's choices and their quote unquote rights, right? Their moral rights, whether they know it or not, whether they're really conscious of the reality of morality or not, people innately, instinctually know, that they have a right to defend what their rights are from that moral individual perspective. They know. People know that. They know that if you try to break into their house and take their stuff or kill them, that they have every right to kill you. They have every right to take whatever action is necessary in order to stop you from doing what you're doing. Yeah, you know, human society tries to create laws that essentially scare people into doing the right thing or not doing the wrong thing, you know, from fear of punishment. But this is not enlightenment, folks. This is, you know, extortion, essentially. Don't take this action or you'll be punished. When reality just works that way on its own. Or it should. But here's the you know, there's the problem, right? Many people won't take action in response. You know, people have let other people walk all over them since the beginning of time. So, you know, yeah, laws are created to try to rectify that, but this is the problem. It's just an imbalance. You've got all these people on one side of the spectrum who are willing to take actions that will be immoral and cause other people harm. And then you have people on the other side of the spectrum who don't do anything about it, who just allow it. And it's because of this imbalance that the situation is what it is. Both sides need to evolve in that direction of enlightenment so that they arrive in the middle together. They meet each other in the middle, where people who aren't doing wrong stand up to those who do, and those who are doing wrong stop doing wrong. Because then, but I mean, it'll never be perfect. There will always be people on both sides, but it's most people. So that's what I'm saying. It's like when you have most people who can arrive at that equilibrium point where there's no wrong being done, and if there is wrong being done, then they'll take the appropriate action, and you're gonna be all right. You're gonna have the few people who try to do wrong still, and you'll have the few people who won't do anything about it. But if most people are in that position where they're not doing wrong, and are in a position where they're ready to do what's necessary, you're gonna be fine. This is a fundamental tenet of individual, personal, moral enlightenment. But this is what I'm saying. See, you can have all of that understanding in the world. If you don't understand the reality of the situation, that, yeah, there are always going to be people who have no conscious concept and understanding of moral reality. If you don't understand that, and if you don't understand that outside of that conscious perception and understanding, there is no morality. If you don't understand this, I mean, you're very incomplete still. There's levels to this, you know, and it never ends. That's what I'm saying. The existence of experience and learning never stops. It's infinite for a reason. Evolution is non-stop. And there are levels. You get to a certain level, that's where, you know, there's a certain point where a certain level of understanding is achieved that certain things become possible that weren't before or without that understanding. It's as simple as a math problem when you look at it in terms of, you know, a genuine freedom and potentiality of possibility equating to the level of moral understanding that there is, the level of overall understanding that there is. Levels to the math. You have this level of overall understanding, you get this level of freedom and overall possibility. And this is in terms of the collective, not an individual. The collective is just made up of individuals, but that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about enough people within a group that have this level of overall understanding that lead to this level of overall possibility. It's a math problem. It's an equation. And this is at the heart of what we're talking about here. It's at the heart of the objectives that are trying to be accomplished. Because only through this certain level of understanding can certain things be accomplished. And those certain things are part of that infinite variety of experience. Only, we're talking about now of the order that, people can't really fathom. Because it's just never been a reality for people, on this planet anyway. I mean, we've had civilizations that have come, closer than others. Like Atlantis at one point was a very enlightened, understanding society that were achieving things that, people now couldn't imagine. But that's happened very rarely on this planet. So it's just completely foreign to people. They just have no idea. They can't even imagine the possibilities. They can't even fathom what we're capable of and what directions we could go, what we could achieve, what kind of evolution could be, the level of acceleration and progression of evolution. They just have no clue. But that's where we need to start going. I mean, we need to start yesterday. I mean, that's how bad things are. I mean, we're in a situation now where the lack of understanding and the absolute imbalance and the rampant overrunning of ignorance and, soul death. Because, that's what's happened here on this planet. All the individual souls here are, they might as well be dead. People are so consumed by what their minds have been programmed with, to the point where who they really are is so buried underneath all of that filth that it might as well be dead. It's barely breathing, metaphorically. And it's leading us to a fate, at least in the immediate future, that you just can't even... you want to talk about not being able to fathom, what we could accomplish in terms of a more benevolent, symbiotic sense. What's coming? What's here now? But what's coming in terms of a detrimental sense? People can't even imagine. Like, you can go read fucking any dystopian novel or watch any of these movies or films. They don't do it justice. You'd have to mix them all together, in order to really fathom where we're headed. And look, again, like, no matter how bad it gets, no matter, in the direction, whatever direction in terms of the detrimental direction that we go in, it's all for the fundamental purpose of existence at the end of the day. So is everything. But again, like, this is only just one half of the duality. This is why balance is, paramount and at the fundamental heart of everything. That's just one component of it. And just like if you only understand, if you only have moral understanding, if you don't have an overall understanding, there will always be imbalance and will always lead to more disaster. You keep going around in a circle with it, right? No, it's more disaster. Well, it's just more experience for consciousness. Then it's just, how do you really explain this to people in a way that they just won't think you're fucking batshit because you keep contradicting yourself and saying things that don't add up? This is what I'm saying. I always go back to the example of suffering. It's like, look at it the same way. The kid is starving to death. He's suffering. He's in pain. And that experience is absolutely indeed part of the infinite, totality of experience that contributes to the evolution, the experience and the evolution of consciousness. Yep. But would you want to be that kid? Would you want to be fucking starving and suffering? I mean, you the person who's probably sitting in a chair in a warm house in your bed with a refrigerator in the next room and a washing machine. Would you want to be that kid in the dirt with no food, suffering? I didn't think so. I didn't fucking think so. So there you go. It's as simple as that. And like, if you don't get it, if you don't get what I'm saying with that example, I don't know how to help you. Like, it's very self-explanatory. I'll say it one more time. All experiences, all of them, they're all inherently, by their existence, in service of the fundamental purpose of existence, which is experience. Duh. Okay? Okay, established. Period. End of story, right? No. Would you, right now, would you, looking at that person, that kid, and his experience, would you want that experience? Would you want to be in his shoes right now, where you are? Listening to me talk on your fucking soft couch, your nice chair. No, you wouldn't. And that should be it. You can hold both of those understandings in your mind simultaneously and not be confused at all. That's all it takes to understand. To understand the fact that something can be, you know, necessary in the sense of, you know, the fact that it's part of all experiences, and that the purpose of experiencing infinite experiences is the purpose of existence in and of itself. You can know that fact. You can have that fact in your mind, and then also have the fact that that is morally not okay. That's morally wrong. You wouldn't want to be in that position. I mean, would you tolerate somebody raping your mother? No, you wouldn't, because you know it's wrong. You know your mother would be suffering and would never want that. It's only when it becomes personal for people that people seem to give a shit. When it's just some random kid starving on the street, you know, it's just people are too detached. It just doesn't affect them enough. I mean, you have to essentially, I mean, Jesus, you shouldn't have to force yourself to fucking care that a kid is starving. It shouldn't be difficult to realize that that kid is another person. You are a person. They are an expression of consciousness. You are an expression of consciousness. It shouldn't be difficult. But I'll tell you what, like I said, it's just more and more testaments to just how fucking lost everybody is. People are willing to tolerate, you know, the most mundane and repetitive and, you know, in terms of just the grind of everyday life, stressful lives, as long as that's the extent of their suffering and responsibility. That's where most people are at on a day-to-day basis. The extent of their suffering and responsibility comes down to that loop grind that they're in. The loop of the grind. People, I mean, they can deal with that, I guess. I fucking can't. Never been able to, never would be able to. Because I have a higher fucking standard. That's what I'm saying. People have just been so cold. They've been so neutered and spayed on the inside. Their souls have been buried underneath mountain heaps of dirt and filth to where that's acceptable by itself. They're willing to tolerate that. But I'll tell you what, as soon as you introduce real suffering into their daily life, not the fucking pathetic mundane variant, which is tolerable to most, you know, but real fucking hardcore suffering, their perspective changes. I'm not saying that people automatically like, transform into somebody like me overnight, where they understand, firmly what I'm talking about. But that's certainly how it begins for most people. When you truly suffer and it's not tolerable, you finally fucking understand. You finally fucking get it. You can finally look at a kid starving to death in some fucking impoverished area in the third world and look at them and understand, finally. My God, how do we allow this? I've suffered now to the point where I can't deal with it. I certainly couldn't deal with their situation. How do we allow this shit? And that's how it does. It begins like that for people. That's what it takes. It takes suffering to truly understand it, and to truly understand that it's everywhere to one degree or another. Because like once you suffer so much that your loop breaks because of it, you look at other people in their loops and you wonder how they do it. You look at the suffering that you experience and you look at it more of as a gift at a certain point, because you realize how it woke you up out of that state of suffering that you were content with. That wasn't okay either. None of it is okay. Meaning, when I say okay, again, meaning that you would want something much more beneficial, something much more productive, symbiotic, sensible, logical. The New Age community, man. The New Age cult. I don't even know why I call it a community, because it's a cult. It's not a community. There's nothing community about it. It's just a fucking cult, where everybody is bought into the ideas that, of passivity, of watching and waiting. Oh, they don't need to do anything. Everything will take care of its fucking self. They'll be saved by some extraterrestrial or fucking mystical thing that starts with one letter. It's truly unbelievable. I mean, like, it's to the point for me where it's very believable, but like just sitting here talking about it, like in the most simplistic form of how things really are, it's unbelievable. It really is. Just from how clearly and coherently I understand it, how I see all of it from that perspective, it's fucking unbelievable. But then, I remember how clearly I know, how clearly I see just how fucked people are, how engineered they've been, how everything is geared towards deceiving them one way or another, and it's hardly unbelievable at all. It's hardly surprising. Shouldn't be surprising or crazy to believe at all when you understand it from that point of view. But like when you're just looking at it from the very constricted point of view of just, this is how things are in reality, this is how things actually work, and I know these things completely, yeah, it's unbelievable from that point of view. But this is why it's absolutely fundamentally, unbelievably, pertinently necessary to understand the full picture, the big and small picture, the overall understanding of reality. It's so vital. Because like if I was just a person who just completely understood, how things work in a vacuum without taking into account the overarching situation of what's really going on this planet, with people and all of the deception and manipulation, then I would have no fucking idea as to why people didn't understand it. I would just be completely and utterly baffled and unable to explain anything. Just be like at a loss for words and just confused and like walking around just wondering why everybody is so retarded. But it is that full spectrum understanding, that balanced understanding between understanding the vacuum reality and the subjective circumstances that allow me to not be confused. To look at it and say, yep, well, this is fucking plain and obvious, yes. And there should be no reason why anybody doesn't understand it, because it's common sense, really. But then you realize, all right, and you know that everything around them is designed specifically to ensure that they are completely backwards, that they are completely disconnected, that they have no fucking idea whatsoever. And the people who do, they're designed to fall into one trap or another that distorts their perception, to the point where they're enough off of the right track that they are rendered either, irrelevant or detrimental. And most of these people in the New Age cult are detrimental in terms of the rhetoric that they spew everywhere. And people eat it up in droves. And that's why it's a cult. Because it's just not obedience per se. It's just blind fucking... I don't even know what word to use. It's just like an established line of thinking, an established state of perception, and there's just droves of blind subscribers to it. That's really it. And the reason why is because it's easy. That's why. There's no responsibility. No real responsibility. No responsibility beyond what people are used to having. It just, in fact, that line of thinking makes it easier to deal with the inherent responsibilities that come with being a fucking slave. That's it. It just makes living a quote unquote normal life, to whatever extent they're living it, easier. Because like I say, yes, while most people can deal with it and they tolerate it because they have to, it's not easy for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. It's not easy. But when you start adopting these New Age philosophies and ideas into your perception and state of consciousness, it definitely does help those people deal with that state of being, that state of slavery. And that's why it's just so, it just permeates everything everywhere. You see it everywhere. It's so goddamn popular now. And that's because in this day and age where, the grind is so grimy, it's necessary for people to find something to cope with it. And for these people in the New Age cult, theistic religion ain't doing it for them. Belief in government ain't doing it for them. Faith in government, whatever. Sports events are not doing it. This is what I'm saying. There are a lot of souls on this planet who are, much more evolved than the majority are. And those are the people that need those more alternative coping mechanisms. These are the people that are more into, at least something along the lines of healthy eating, or, whatever. Doing yoga or meditating or whatever it is. Something that's not really mainstream. That's more of a quote-unquote spiritual nature. They're more geared towards that. And that's what all this stuff is set up for. Just to lead them down these paths where all they're doing is essentially making their prison cell look and feel a little bit nicer. They add a nice puffy fucking beanbag chair to their prison cell. They decorate it with all sorts of nice colors and pleasant looking aesthetics. Fucking affirmation posters, and making it fucking burning some sage in there, making their prison cell real fucking nice and comfortable. But that's all they're doing. They're the most comfortable prisoners in the prison. That's what they are. Whereas most people are, pretty uncomfortable. But like I said, people are so accustomed to it, and it's just, it's better than a lot of the suffering that goes on this planet, so they deal with it. But they're not happy, and they're not comfortable. Not really. Like I said, they're comfortable enough to the point where they're willing to fucking tolerate it the way it is without feeling like they have to do all that other stuff. Fucking, the belief in fucking God is enough for them. The belief in, their religion and their religion of government is enough. Their sports team winning is enough. But, for these more these more evolved people, these more evolved souls, it's not enough. And it was all laid out there for them. I mean, I'm telling you, it was all specifically drawn up and designed specifically for them. And I never fell into this trap. I had my moments where, like in my earlier years, where I was meditating more, a lot, just to feel like I was, I don't even know, just like to feel like I could feel some sort of peace with it all. But that's what I'm saying. Very quickly I realized it's just a trap. There's no peace in enslavement. Zero. There's no peace in knowing that so many are suffering. I mean, to the extent that you would do anything if you were that person to get you to fucking do something about it. There's no peace there. Not if you really understand it. And that's what I realized. I'm never going to find peace from this. It's just, you do have to get to a point where you accept that this is the way things are. And so you don't like literally drive yourself over the edge. Because you will do that if you don't find some sort of, solace. That's what you have to find. You have to find some solace, not peace. Not real peace. I mean, I found a degree of peace through solace. Through the acceptance. I mean, you have to at a certain level, at a certain point, to a certain extent, you have to accept the way things are. For multiple reasons. First and foremost, you have to accept the way things are so that you can take the necessary steps in order to do what you can to facilitate awareness of these things that are happening so that they can change. And that's what I'm doing this for, on one level. And then, on another level, you have to accept it because it is the way that fucking things are. And if you don't accept it as reality, I mean, you're just going to you will drive yourself mad. Or into denial or something extreme. And through that variety of acceptance, not the acceptance of it that it's okay. Not at all, obviously. That solace that you get from that variety of acceptance, it's just solace by clarity, by proxy of clarity. Clarity by proxy of solace. Or both. Either one works. Clarity and solace are tied together. I mean, true clarity. I mean, not just seeing one thing clearly, but that's what I'm saying. The overall big picture understanding is so vital. Just in every aspect. Balance. Being in the middle of the whole thing, seeing it all. It's just so vital in every way. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Whether it be on a personal, individual level or on a collective level, it's inescapable. It is of paramount, fundamental importance across the board. And this is why it's called the Thought Train, because, I started off talking about the purpose of reality, and I'm still talking about it, but I've segued into so many different dimensions of everything. And that's the point. It's how it's supposed to be. Just so you know, this is how it's going to be. This is the nature of this series. Once I start the Laws of Reality series, you'll see the difference. Trust me. That series will be pretty much all outlined and scripted before I get on the mic. I will plan on when I'm going to record it, and they will be uploaded at on a weekly basis on a schedule. And you'll see the difference in how I speak, the content itself, the correlation from one episode to the next. You'll see the difference. This is just me talking. I've just sat here for the last hour and 25 minutes talking. This is the kind of conversation that I'll have with people on an individual basis. Except right now, I mean, there's nobody talking back to me, so I'm just speaking and not listening. But listen, that's what I'm saying. It's like the purpose of reality is to experience all of this and to learn from all that experience the truth. Truth through experience, truth through learning, learning through the experience. That's what it's all about. Infinite experience for infinite learning. That's reality. The one consciousness experiencing itself in infinite ways, experiencing reality in infinite ways, experiencing existence in infinite ways. That's the point. And it's through that process, it's through that existence that the infinite variety of individuals is manifested. It makes me so different from you, but at the same time, we're so alike just by our nature alone. It's just so crazy. That's the idea. The idea is for everybody to be one at the fundamental level, but to branch out through the infinity of existence and experience to be, very different. But there will always be the common link, the common foundation. No matter how different one person, one being, one soul gets from another, they will always have that link. And that is the beauty of it. That is the perfect symmetrical harmony of it. You can go as far away on the spectrum from somebody else as you want, and you will always be connected with them intimately by your nature. And that's the point. That's the fucking point. And it never ends. And it will never end. There's no beginning and no end. It's just always been. Consciousness has always been. It wasn't created. It doesn't have a birthday or a death date. It's just always been and always will be. And therefore, so will the experience of existence. So will you as a soul. You are consciousness. Irregardless of your individual nature as a soul, you still are infinite, immortal consciousness. Irregardless. And you will endure for all time. We all will. It's crazy. And people will get lost in that big picture. They get lost in it and they lose sight of the small picture because you're here now. Like, irregardless of how much time you have in the infinite fucking, journey of existence, you're here right now in this moment, in this place, in this situation. And you have to intimately understand both. You have to intimately understand the big and the small picture. The earth, in comparison to the universe and the totality of existence, is the small picture, right? I mean, like, you want to look at the earth as the big picture, you can, in reference to your little neighborhood or to your city or whatever. But that's what I'm saying. There's always levels. There's always levels to everything. And, it always depends on what you're comparing what to, From the city perspective, the state's the big picture. From the state perspective is the country. From the country, it's the fucking world. It's just blah, yada, yada, yada. Go on forever. What I'm speaking about the cosmic picture in comparison to the earth picture, big and small in that way. You need to understand the cosmic nature of yourself and existence as well as the global, immediate nature of your existence. That's the only way forward, is to synthesize those two understandings within yourself so that you are in the best version of yourself within, and therefore can make the best decisions and do the greatest, most impactful things without in the immediate time that you are here. That's what it's all about. It's just we're just in a very it's just a very difficult situation. That's the best way I can put it. It's a very difficult fucking situation. You got 8 billion people running around on this fucking rock, and 99% of them are in no position to be doing anything other than what they're doing, which is just being a fucking either an ignorant, enslaved consumer, or in a position where they can do basically nothing but get by and suffer. To some degree, that's where everybody's at on this planet. Not everyone. Not everyone. I mean, everyone in the general population is enslaved on some level, but I'm saying that 99% of them are just completely ignorant and powerless because of their ignorance, or because their circumstances are just so dire and hopeless that they don't have any power other than to just make it to the next day. But, you know, you're talking about not a 50-50 split, but something close to that of people who you have like in the third world who have far less ability to do anything about anything, and then you have the first world who could change everything overnight. You have the United fucking States military budget, which is $839 billion. You take a fucking quarter of that, and you could change the world drastically in a week. That's the difference. That's what I'm saying. The difference between, you know, the third world and the first world. You got one country by itself that could change the whole world in a week with a quarter of what it spends on its military. I mean, that's one of those facts. That's one of those truths that by itself should shake somebody to their core. It did me. That's all it took for me. It's something as simple as that to make me realize just how bad it is. I've always known it was bad. I've always known nothing fucking made a lick of sense, and that everybody was just winging it the best they could, you know, with the fucking shitty situation that we have here. But something like that, it makes it glaringly obvious just how malicious it is in terms of intent, in terms of design, and in terms of just how ass fucking backwards everybody really is. Something like that. $830 billion. One fucking country. Change the whole world. But that just goes to show you. You know, it just goes to show you. And it all ties in, folks. Like all this stuff that I'm saying, it all ties into the meaning, the purpose of reality. If people genuinely understood the purpose of reality, who they really are, then all this shit changes. There is no U.S. military budget to complain about in the first place. All this shit, all this stuff that I could mention, that I have mentioned, it's all just symptoms. It's all just results. It's all just effects of the causes, of the underlying cancer. Everything could be changed. Everything could be radically different if people just knew the fundamental truth. The fundamental truth of both the small and the big picture, but especially the big picture. If they understood the big picture, the small picture would be much easier to understand. That the problem is that with so many people right now anyway, is that people are so, they're so enveloped in what they see as the big picture and their perception that the small picture just doesn't fucking matter, or that the small picture is irrelevant because the big picture is all that fucking matters, and the small picture will just take care of itself, or the small picture just is what it is and has to be that way because of the big picture. The big picture mandates that the small picture be this way because, it's serving the grand purpose, etc., etc., etc. Just a complete plague of imbalance everywhere. Doesn't matter where you look, it's all the same in every direction. It's just different varieties, different sorts, different manifestations, different appearance. Same woman, different dress. That's it. Same fucking house, different coat of paint. It's going back, right? It's the same consciousness, different people, different souls. Same consciousness, different souls. It's not exactly the same, but it ties in, right? It's all such a beautiful disaster, you know. This planet, because that's the experience we're having. It's just the planet itself. It's a fucking, look at it. It's a paradise, like, in terms of what it is. Just innately, look at it. It's absolute perfection. Nature is just, it's perfect. The temperature's perfect. Like, the climate is perfect. Like, everything is just perfect. But then you just have the disaster that is the product of human fucking ignorance and, I mean, just deadness, internal deadness, and you see the results of that, and it's just a disaster. It's a disaster in this beauty. And then you have the beauty of what the human being and what all life really is, which is just the pure awareness of consciousness and the soul manifestations of that in individuals. You have the beauty of that is just completely distorted by all of that disaster. Just the soul, the beauty of it just buried underneath all that filth of that illusion and the disaster that comes with it. Comes with the identification with it, that comes with the belief in it, that comes with the domination of it. And we're not even close to waking up. And that's the other thing that I hear so often, is that the world is waking up. The Great Awakening. I mean, have you taken a look around lately? Oh, it's all just happening. It's all happening because, it's got to come to the surface first. Right? It's just manifesting itself. I mean, listen. There's some logic in that explanation, but people treat all of these ideas and concepts and platitudes as dogmatic religion. This is the problem I have. I mean, it's basically anything to abdicate responsibility from we the people as a whole, as individuals. It's just, that's what it is to me. I mean, that's what it is objectively. If they're right, so be it. If they're right and all this is just occurring because some, beautiful, magical change is going to occur inevitably anytime now, I don't care. I have no problem with being wrong in any case, but I definitely have no problem being wrong with something like that happening. Of course I don't. That's kind of the whole point of me doing what I do, is to try to bring that about in the first place, right? I mean, like, overall, at the core of it, but I know 100% for a fact in my mind and in my heart that the only real way to make that happen and to sustain it is through the genuine enlightenment of enough individuals. And then the action taken as a result. Not because people are supposedly waking up at a decent enough number for things to just fucking magically shift like they say they will. Oh, it's the vibration, it's the Schumann resonance, it's the resonance of the magnetic field. It's all just shifting us into a 5D earth, and it's going to be great. We don't have to do anything. We just have to sit and watch and not buy into the lies and continue to post memes on fucking Instagram. And everything will just be as it should be. You wouldn't get me to buy into that in any case. I mean, look, I hope they're right, but I know they're not. I know they're not. So the hope to being, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I will call you out for what you are, and you are mistaken. At the very least, you are mistaken. You are incorrect. And that's the thing I've always said. It's like if I'm wrong about what they say that they're right about, if they're right and I'm wrong about what they're talking about, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't bother me. Fabulous. But that's the thing. That's just not how it works. And they don't understand that, apparently. to any meaningful degree, they don't understand. And I don't know. Like, honestly, like I said, I think it has more to do with not necessarily the lack of understanding ultimately somewhere, within them. It all comes down to not wanting to abandon the level of comfort that they have in the prison. They don't want to give up what they have left of their normal life. They want to believe that they can just continue to do what they're doing. Sitting on their computer making memes, talking about how everything is inevitably going to change while they fucking lay in their nice bed with their nice fucking air-conditioned house and their refrigerator downstairs full of their food. They want to be able to just continue to, exist in that reality. And the only way to do that is to believe that they don't actually have to do shit. That they can just sit and wait, watch and wait. This is what they really think. And they have to think it. They have to really think it in order to maintain what they have left of that comfortable normalcy. Because the truth is, in order for anything to really change into anything remotely like they describe, they'd have to give that stuff up and actually put their fucking boots on the ground and take real action. That's the only way anything will really change in that vein to any degree. And they know that deep down, I think. But they have to hold on to that half-truth delusion in order to continue living the way that they do. Because it's all they know. They truly wouldn't know what the fuck to do if they were thrown into the fire of genuine, warfare, or just genuine commitment in terms of actually manifesting a real tangible change on in an expedited fashion. Not fucking waiting around and milking the clock for generations. I'm talking about making change quickly in a matter of years. That whole concept, that reality is just a completely foreign agent to them because because it is. All they've ever known their entire life is what they're doing right now. They've changed their life in that normalcy. Like I said, they really decorated that prison cell. They really made it look nice. They really put some comfortable furniture in there. They get some good naps. They're in leisure when they're doing their keyboard warrior routine. Feels great. Oh yeah. I'm really relaxing while I'm telling people that fucking, their savior is on the way. That time just has to pass. And you'll see, peddling that shit to people in the comfort of their nice little fucking cushy prison cell. That's what they know. That's the extent they've changed their life. Oh, the refrigerator is full now of organic food instead of fucking, a hamburger helper. They got crystals now instead of fucking cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? It's all just a means of keeping people from doing anything, actually doing anything. And this is the price of the nature of democratic reality, meaning that in any situation you're in, when you're with the collective, it is the majority rules. You are a subject to whatever the majority believes and decides. And so when you have the overwhelming majority of people just continuing to do the dance every day, no matter how woke they think they are doing it, you are subject to that to a certain degree. So because of them, I am forced to be able to really only do this. I can sit here with a microphone and talk to no one, and then publish it on to the internet and hope 50 people will listen to it. Make content, create a website, speak to people in my everyday life, walk the walk in my behavior and how I carry myself, and what I do with my money and my time. That's like the best I can do as a result of the fact that 99% of people are just doing the dance. I have to do the fucking dance to a certain degree. To a certain extent, as a result, no matter what, that 1% or less that's left has to do the dance along with them in order just to survive. And it's just, it's just pathetic is all. It's really my whole point is that it's just all pathetic. You have this beautiful, unreal purpose to existence that is just completely unknown. And the results of that show in dramatic transparency. It's so readily apparent. The results of that ignorance are clear as day for anybody who has any semblance of eyes to see. And it's just, I know that it's just going to take an egregious amount of escalation in suffering and disarray in order for people to come to a point where they're even remotely close to being ready to really understand what I'm saying here. And it's just sad. It's just sad from a personal and a moral and a sensible perspective, from a informed, understanding perspective. It's just fucking sad. But like like I said, I've done a great deal of accepting, a lot of accepting that I didn't want to do, that I've never wanted to do. But you have to do it. You have to do it just on the principle of how things are, and you have to be able to, take the best action in your situation as you can. And in order to do that, you have to have clarity on what's really happening and why, how. But yeah, reality is crazy. Just from the seemingly paradoxical nature of it. It is crazy to reconcile it, because it's just like, holy shit, this can be true and this can be true. Wow, it's just so amazing. Like, wow, we can all be one but totally separate. That's just wild, and it is. No doubt about it. I mean, it's just like in the body, right? As above, so below, as they say. Every individual cell in your body is an individual cell, but it all makes up one body. It's the same thing. All souls make up one big fucking blob of consciousness that's fractalized, sprinkled everywhere like grains of sand on a beach. That it's one beach, but it's all made up of grains of sand. It's one big ocean, but it's made up of droplets of water. That's how it is. And you have the same thing applies, in terms of just like the universe. Like the planets and the sun and the stars, they're all just They're all individual planets and stars, but they all make up the one big universe. I mean, it goes in the solar system, galaxy, universe, and then you have all the universes that make up the one multiverse, with all the universes. And then, who the fuck knows? That's as far as I've gotten in terms of my understanding of how things work. From then, beyond the multiverse, it's hard to say. It really doesn't even fucking matter. That's just where it gets interesting to talk about and think about. I mean, and then at that point you get, that's where you start to get into the one singularity consciousness reality. And that's, I was explaining that to somebody the other day, how, you have the singularity of consciousness that essentially just infinitely expanded outward into the infinite souls and pockets of reality for experience. And then from that expansion, you get infinite other singularities, which we call souls. So from the one singularity of consciousness, it essentially just replicated itself infinitely on infinite different paths via the nature of the individual existence, so that each individual experiences reality completely different from any other individual, whether or not they're in the same relative or exact geographic space-time location. It will be different just by proxy of them being having a different vehicle to exist in, a different conduit to experience with, and therefore having a different perception than another. It's just, that's what's nuts. That's what's fucking nuts. We're all just, I hate to say the phrase, we're all each other. I'm you and you're me, because it's not. It's a half truth. Like, you listening to me talk right now and me talking, the engine behind both of those things, the engine behind you listening and me talking is the same engine. But it's not a good metaphor. But your engine has been through a completely different set of experiences and has a completely different perception as a result than mine does. It's easier to say your brain or your soul, whatever. You get it. Your soul, your brain has been through a totally different experience on this planet in the entirety of your existence than I have. So even though we both have the same foundation that those experiences and perception were then built on, formulated from, there's still different experiences and perception, and therefore each and every one of you listening is going to have a different experience and perception of me talking than anybody else listening. And then my perspective, my perception, my experience has been totally different from any of you. And yet we're all running on the same we're all running on the same fuel, I guess you could say. We have the same power source. We're all drawing from the same power plant, but it's all going to different locations, to use that metaphor. Each of you is a different fucking house that the power is running to, and I'm a different house, but we're all running from the same power. It's so crazy. That means we can all tap into the truth because we're all hooked up to the same source. So we can all know the same things. It's just we're going to know them from a different point of view. And that's the point. That's what makes it interesting, because the truth is objectively the same. No matter, what point of view you're looking at it from. It is the same objective reality. It's the same objective truth, but we're seeing it, we're perceiving it, we're understanding it from our own unique point of view, with our own unique perception, in conjunction with our own unique experiences. But we're all looking at the same thing. It's the same as it's the world, right? We're all on the same earth, but we're all looking at it from completely different angles, from different locations, with different perceptions, with different experiences. What amazes me, and what's always amazed me, and that was kind of a source of, not proof, but validation for everything, was that it's just how easy it is to use different examples and be able to convey the same message. Like, from the power plant to the houses, from the perception or from the different relative positions that we are on the same planet. It all works. We're all we're all consciousness, but we're all individual souls. Like, it's all the same point. It's all the same principle, and that's because it's just a all-permeating universal fact of reality that can be expressed and communicated and conveyed in so many different ways. Yeah, I mean, pretty much any way you can think of. Others are more, they work better than others. It just depends on the context of what you're talking about. But they all deliver the same fundamental message of truth, and that was something that really, it definitely just validated everything for me from the beginning. It made me realize that everything is connected, and truly it does. It permeates everything. I'm at an hour 50 something now, so I don't want to go over 2 hours, because I know that people are busy, and I understand. I understand the nature of life, and that you can only devote so much attention at a time for whatever reason. So I'm gonna cut it off now. But I said pretty much everything I wanted to say for now. I mean, I always have something that I could say, but it just takes me off on more and more tangents that never end. So I guess this could go on for days. So I'll stop it now. So this has been episode 2. I still don't know what I'm gonna do yet in terms of the Laws of Reality series and when that'll start. I do have stuff that I'm doing still and dealing with. Like, I'm about to travel here in like a week and a half, for like a week and a half, and I probably won't be doing a bunch of shit while I'm doing that. I'll be with my girlfriend for that time, but I will figure it out, and I will let you all know. Again, if you want a hard drive full of 5+ terabytes of knowledge, depending, and data and information, depending on how big of a hard drive you want. I have up to 6 terabytes of information. If you want one, just send me an email at moralityislaw@mailfence.com. Email is in the YouTube information area. Or you can send me a message at the Laws of Reality Instagram page. Either one is fine. I talked about details with that in the previous episode. I will. There's an Instagram highlight that describes the process and everything that goes into it on there. I'm gonna, on the website, on the unseenencyclopedia.com website, I'm gonna put a section in there for the hard drives that tells you everything that you need to know, so you can just go there and access all the details that you need to know, if you want to do it and what to do if you decide that you want to do it. I haven't done that yet. I will do that later on, probably sometime today or tomorrow. So I will probably do another recording in the next few days. I'll probably get at least a couple of more in at least before I leave. I don't know. We'll see. I might do others sometime. I don't know, but I have to bring my good microphone, and I'm probably not going to do that. So this might be the last week for at least till the beginning of November. But I'll let you guys know. I hope you've enjoyed this and have gotten something out of it. If you have, just, I encourage you to share it with somebody. People need this. They need this information. They need this perspective because, like I said, guys, it's just that bad. And, irregardless of whether or not it's going to change anything in the big picture, at least in the short term, it'll change a lot for an individual, and that's really the best I can do right now. It's the best we can do right now is to help the individual, and just helping one person, because there's always that one person who is looking for what is contained within a lot of this information that all of us, who take the time to make anything are talking about. And that's what makes it worth it. So, yeah, if you liked it, if you continue to like it, there will be plenty more. And hopefully you got something out of it, if not a whole lot out of it. I hope you got a whole lot out of it. That's optimal. And I hope you'll get a whole lot out of it going forward, because I don't intend to stop. I intend to just keep going more and more into different things and in detail, and hopefully, really catalyzing and accelerating enlightenment. That's what it's all about. I just want people to be the best version of themselves and to give themselves as individuals and everybody, as all of us as a collective, the best chance to make the most out of our existence. That's the whole idea. To make the most out of the purpose that everything has, all that experience and all the lessons and growth and the beauty and benevolence and benefit and symbiosis that can come out of it. Until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Peace.